Well, North Carolina.
Got it.
It's endearing, isn't it?
I'll just keep my comments to myself till later, till the mic's off.
No, anyway, that 23, he doesn't let anybody see somebody in the house.
Okay. Welcome to the 7th public meeting of the Board of Commissioners. This is Monday, April 4th, 2016. And will everyone please rise? We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance by the Chief.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary, please take the roll. Mr. D'Amelio.
Here.
Mr. McCluskey.
Here.
Mr. Siegel.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Holmes.
Here.
Mr. McGarity.
Here.
Mr. Wexler.
Here.
Mr. Oliva.
Here.
And Mr. Connell. Here. Make a notice that the Board of Commissioners met in executive session prior to the public session at 6:30 to discuss a real estate matter. First to the podium, can we have the Chief of Police for a crime update?
Thank you, Commissioner. For the month of March, we had 345 traffic citations issued, 163 parking tickets, and 322 written warnings. Burglaries, 5 burglaries for the month of March. Eagle Towers at an apartment that was considered unfounded. 300 block of Davis Road, open porch entered a theft from an unlocked vehicle. Johnson Road on 316, detached shed, lawn equipment was taken. Suspect ID was a drug dispute. 324 unit block of Maryland Avenue, no force. A tote bag was taken. That was in the early evening hours. And also in 324, 300 block of Walnut Hill, force to get into the house, camera taken also in the early evening hours. Once again, theft from vehicles. The dog park, that was a forced entry on that one. Pocketbook, credit cards, and some medicine was taken. Manoa School, open vehicle, forced entry to vehicle, $200 in credit cards. That was a smashed window during the day. On 37100 block of Land Ave, 2 unlocked vehicles, $300 in cash, 1 to 4,000 British pounds from a second vehicle. 315, the Giant Store, or Campbell Avenue, she wasn't sure when $70 was taken out of the car. 317 Rodmore Avenue, unlocked again, change an iPod. 318 Winfield Drive, unlocked, change sunglasses. 331 Manoa Shopping Center, unlocked, a handicap placard was taken. The canine usage, we had 1 search warrant service at a resident with an arrest, 2 vehicle investigations and 2 drug arrests, a resident search with a drug arrest, 4 vehicle stops, 2 residential burglaries, and 1 residential alarm with an open door. Once again, you can see theft from vehicles, most of them were all open. Vehicles were all, left unlocked. Over the weekend, we had 2 or 3, once again, with unlocked vehicles.
Any questions for the Chief?
I guess what you should say is don't leave your vehicles unlocked.
I
Make
say
sure
every
that,
meeting, I'll say it again, do not leave your vehicles unlocked. You can see most of the thefts are from unlocked vehicles, and people do leave things of value in there, and they are taken. So it's very easy to lock your car before you go in at night.
4,000 British pounds?
4,000 British pounds. The woman was getting ready to go on vacation. She had her car packed. She was leaving the next morning, and it was taken. So
That's a shame.
That is
Commissioner D'Amelio?
Chief, I'm wondering, and I don't mean to place more work on you, but in maybe June, do a 6-month, have a graph or something to show us maybe from the prior year whether or not these types of crimes are increasing or decreasing, so we can see a percentage of what type of like, burglaries, car break-ins, so we have an idea of what the percentages are. Is it going up? Is it going down?
okay, we can do that.
Is that
Sure, with
good?
the help of our IT department, we can take care of that.
There you go. Gave Rick a little
Chief,
side of
could
it, too.
And with that segue,
I have a question.
oh, wait a
Chief.
second, excuse me. Commissioner Lewis?
Yes, Chief. So of the 345 traffic citations that were issued, how many were paid without challenge or upheld by the DJ?
We don't have that information. That doesn't come back to us. I could start tracking that if you like.
I'd like to know that.
I'll see if that's possible. We have a
Yeah.
court coordinator that's there every day, so I'll see if I can get that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Gentlemen? Okay, thank you, Chief. And speaking of the IT department, Mr. McCleary, you are the director. Would you like to come forward to introduce a new employee?
Certainly. Hello. Basically, you guys have approved a social media, multimedia specialist position for the Township of Haverford. We have a new employee called Allie Rothman over here. She's going to come up and give you some bullet points of what her intentions are for the township to help get the information out to the residents, show some of the information that we need to have for content changes on the website, update some other features that we're looking to do, address some of your needs that you guys may have as well. So with no other time to spare, Allie, would you come up and introduce yourself to the commissioners?
Yeah.
Hi, how's it going? Allie Rothman. As Rick said, I'll be doing social media, multimedia, video, website, those kinds of things for the township. So over the past couple of weeks, I've looked at what currently is being done, social media, website, for the township, what's been done in the past, and took a look at some things that can improve. So right now, social media, there's not too much going on. I'm sure you guys could agree with that. That's something I will really start to jump into. That's something I can start right away. On the website, if you go from page to page, different departments, things are not very consistent. There's different amounts of content here and there, so that's something where I'll need to talk to each different department, talk to them, see what kind of fresh content they have, what we can do in the future, any events coming up, those kinds of things. And as I said, where I see things going, social media, we can really use that to promote meetings, events, anything going on in the community. Let the residents know what's going on, any kind of construction, anything like that. Just really have an open forum to let them know, here's what's going on, here's where your taxpayers are going, or tax money is going. And then, as I said with the website, that would be something that we can do right away, clean that up, adapt to what it is right now, maybe look further into the future about maybe do a newer website. Yeah, any questions?
User-friendly, yes.
Yes.
Much more user-friendly. Larry, did you have?
Yeah, I just actually have one question that popped in my mind. Ally, we started with the assistance of Commissioner Siegel a few years ago, but we don't have a real big database of constant contact. And we have only utilized it here in the township in conjunction with our reverse 911, our emergency notification system that we only use during emergency notification for storms, if we're going to not collect trash, shutting down emergency services and things of that nature. Do you have any ideas on how we can reach out to the community to build a database that we can actually use that tool more consistently, doing almost like a monthly or even a bi-monthly wireless, sending the content for information out through constant contact? Do you have any experience with that?
I do not have experience with constant contact in particular, but I have a lot of experience with social media and then also using newsletters to get information out. So the big way to get the information out using social media is you need to build the base. So different events throughout the township, go around, hand out flyers, say, hey look, here's all of our social media sites, here's the names of them, go follow us there, here's what kind of content you'll be able to say.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Siegel?
Go ahead, Dan.
Two things. One, we could, as we've done with other things, have a spot on the website for people to sign up for newsletters, or, and I know it's really tight, have it on our tax bill where when they pay the bill, they could include it, but I know there's very little space on there for that. But,
No
that's what I do
comments.
with my website, and that's how I've,
No comments on the tax bill.
We don't want any space for comments.
not comments, email address.
I know.
Yeah.
Mr. President. Larry, before anything goes out, obviously be approved by your office?
Yeah, well, I work conjunction But the things that normally go out, Commissioner, are like on the Facebook, social media, things of meetings. And what Ally had said is accurate. We've never had our webpage being managed by one. It's broken up into 5 or 6 different departments. So if you go on there, most importantly, the content's not up to date because there's really no one that's been watching it. So we need to get the content cleaned up, get it up to date. So everything, when it's being put on the website, it goes through Rick and Ally's department. So that's one of our first initiatives. But yes, anything important relating to information, it always clears my office. Yes.
So it'll be township-wide, but not broken down by Ward 2, or?
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. You're talking about like a newsletter. That's something that I would like to do with constant contact. Not to an extent, maybe not as in depth of the newsletter that we do, but something that we can put out that normally doesn't have to wait. It's something that's important relating to services that we want to get out that we know that's going to go into a future newsletter that's relating to township business that we can do through constant contact. It could even be updates on emergency medical services. It's going to be updates, any police-related information. We can put together something of that sort.
Steve, if I can interject with that too, is that everything that we're gonna put out, it's gonna be cleared, whether it's through the chief of police, township manager, whatever, especially when it's a sensitive issue. We wanted just to come out here and just introduce everybody there and also address some of your own personal needs for each ward. When you guys have meetings for the ward, we wanna put that out on Facebook and advertise that so we can really get the public involved
Right,
with
I
that
agree.
as well. Everything else that's, it's gonna get cleared, anything there, the day-to-day stuff that goes out there, that's what she's gonna be cleaning up on a consistent basis.
So for example, the various boards and commissions, I think most are required to take minutes. And I don't know that they are all on the webpage. Who would be responsible for making sure that the various boards and commissions actually submit their minutes and are actually part of the website?
When they come to currently right now, when they come to my department, and then Gloria go ahead and puts them on, they'll be forwarded to Rick's department for Rick and Ally to go ahead and put them onto the website.
So, but Gloria is the one responsible for following up with the various boards and commissions to make sure the minutes are actually
Yeah, we
submitted?
don't chase them down. They know their obligations.
But if they don't do it, then we don't.
No.
No, okay.
Again, the boards and commissions are
By the Board of Commissioners.
they answer to the Board of Commissioners. So that could be something that we do. We remind them each year when.
Because I think the bylaws require that they submit minutes, so.
And it's gotten better. I will
yeah.
tell you, in the last couple of years, it has gotten better. We do get the minutes from various, the park, I know the Stadium Board, the EAC, we're getting them
Good,
now.
that's good.
So if we could send then a notice to all the committee chairs.
We can certainly do that.
We
and send them a
could
reminder.
remind them
Yep.
that, and that it will go onto the website. Okay.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much, and welcome. Welcome to the family. Presentation by the library. I want to bring up Monica Pacello first for an introduction. Monica, welcome this evening.
That's interesting.
Good evening, my name is Monica Bocella, President of the Board of Trustees for the Haverford Township Free Library. I first want to thank the Board of Commissioners for your support. I'd also like to thank Township Manager Larry Gentili for his consistent, diligent efforts in regards to coordinating emergency repairs for the library. Additional thanks to the Director of Public Works, Richard Doherty, Doc, for his department's care, time, and attention to the library, and all the aforementioned also applies to Lori Widdop and Finance Director Amy Cuthbertson. I'm here with Vice President Damian Spar from Reynolds Business Solutions. We will be reviewing for you a preliminary progress report on the renovation, outlining the timeline, budget, Keystone grant process, and transitional period for the library during construction. Architect Lee Casaccio is here, and I also want to recognize the Building Committee, Chairman Jeff Miller, Ed Jenkins, Rich Caesar, and Scott Lowe. Scott Lowe is also a Board of Trustee member who wanted to be here but is away on business. We are extremely proud to have Scott as a fellow member of the Board of Trustees. He's a 25-year resident of the township, an engineer and owner of Trainer Consulting Services, and his firm specializes in construction management, claim analysis, and dispute resolution. He's a published author of 2 books, Construction on Contaminated Sites and Construction Delays. And he is also involved in helping Lower Marion Township address some of the issues that arose during the renovation of Ludington Library. Some announcements. I attended the Ardmore Library grand reopening and read about a cornerstone that was found during the renovation, which contained a time capsule going back over 100 years. I thought that would be a wonderful idea for the library. Therefore, for the renovated library, the Board of Trustees just voted to have a time capsule placed in a cornerstone for future generations to discover. We would like to include a picture of all of you in the time capsule. As commissioners, you're not only part of the history of this township, all your decisions, small and large, shape the environment, establish and mark the history of Haverford Township. And finally, as a member of the Gala Committee, a date and theme has been selected, and I'm very proud to announce this year, for one of the awards, we have chosen to honor you, the Board of Commissioners. You are all invited as honored guests and will be presented with a very special award. The gala will be held at Lanark Country Club on November 12th. And sometimes the gala has more formal themes. This year the library went mainstream and is honoring author Ian Fleming and the James Bond series, whose books turned into 25 movies spanning half a century. And Ian Fleming received most of his insights from his real-life stint as a naval intelligence officer and his coordination with the real MI6 British intelligence agents. And on a final comment on this, you might not be aware, but there is a direct Philadelphia connection to James Bond. Ian Fleming was a keen birdwatcher and avid reader of books on ornithology, written by none other than the Philadelphia-born author James Bond. Mr. Fleming thought the author's name was a perfect fit for his international spy. And James lived in Montgomery County. He was originally a banker who quit and became an ornithologist and eventually curator of the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia. Next time you watch a James Bond film, if you look closely, Ian Fleming always inserts references to the work and a tip of the hat to the Philadelphia-born James Bond into various scenes of the James Bond films, such as Dr. No and the 2002 Die Another Day. So thank you so much, and I'd like to introduce Damian Spar, Vice President from Reynolds Business Solutions. Thanks again.
Thank you, Monica. And actually, you did that very well. You weren't shaken or stirred. R. On the presentation, was requested that if we could hold all our comments or questions to the end of the presentation, as opposed to doing it through it. All right, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Damian Spar, and in front of you is a duplication of the presentation that we're going to provide. What the agenda is for this evening is to provide a status of the project, which is basically about design, status of the budget, Keystone grant process, status of the schedule, and some discussion about the status of locating a temporary library space. I'm going to invite Lee Casaccio up for the first part of this so that he can talk about where we are with programming and starting schematic design and start to show you what that's going to look like as he continues ahead with his work. Lee?
Thank you.
Good evening. My part will be very brief. I hope you Villanova fans appreciate that. I'll be happy to answer questions afterwards. In short, the programming is complete, ready for approval, and schematic design of the new library is just beginning. Programming, of course, is a very detailed analysis of all the space requirements, space relationships, all the stacking, and so forth and so on. Prepared by Himmel and Wilson, an excellent program, our library consultants, and a requirement for the Keystone grant application. We're also beginning some testing. We're testing electrical systems and some of the other infrastructure, so we have more information when we go into design. How do I do this? So there's just a couple of design highlights that you may be interested in. This is actually a diagram based on the space utilization study plans that were prepared by my firm several years ago. And if you're oriented, Darby Road is on the left, Mill Road is along the bottom. And the first feature, I guess, is the entrance. We need a new elevator. And so the rest of it is renovation. This is almost a reconstruction because we're going to create a new elevator and a whole new entrance sequence, if you will. It's very welcoming, very secure. So when most of the time the entire library is open, folks will come in and then they can either use the facilities on the first floor, fiction, nonfiction. On the left side where the old bank building was will be a beautiful living room, reading area. And then from there we can ascend upstairs to the children's area and the other facilities there, or descend in a nicer stairwell to the lower area where the meeting rooms and community rooms will be. But that's going to be a little tricky to do that. We're excited about the scheme that we've worked out, and we've been working very closely with the library staff to get all the function to work. So we know we have limited space in the library, and we have more stuff that we wanted to put in the library than the size of it. And we've been able to steal some space, create some space, about 1,600 square feet we found, by taking space that was in the lower level mechanical room. So big mechanical space was built many years ago, bigger than we need now, because the size of our HVAC equipment and such. So we're actually stealing some space there to make storage spaces, allowing us to make the community space larger and more flexible. The other thing that we're doing is we're going to take the what's been called as the dungeon area. It's this basement area under the old bank space, and we're going to cut out, we're going to reduce the floor level for the area that, as you can see circled there, towards the corner, towards Mill Road. And that will give us the opportunity for a new maker space, which is be a very valuable program area for the library. And then up on the upper level, we've done things like there was a corridor space, you've been up there, that runs along the whole back toward the boardroom. And we've taken that and we've done away with that, and we're going to make more usable space from that. So we're trying to make it as usable as possible. Some of the other features are, there's about 4 meeting spaces now. We'll have a variety of about 7 meeting spaces, different sizes and shapes, different adaptable uses. So they're just some of the features, and we're anxious to come back in a month or so and present the schematic design. As I said, I'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Thank you, Lee. So, the status of the budget. Right now, and this has been discussed here, and this is how we're kind of laying the budget out so we can assure that the amounts of money put into the budget will adequately cover the things that we have to do. And I would direct your attention, probably the last page of your handout is a detailed budget of soft costs, non-construction related, and a couple of construction related costs and some things like that you will see match up here. We understand that the township funds are $5 million plus the $1.7 million in soft costs. We are poised right now to submit a letter of intent for the Keystone Grant with a goal of getting up to $500,000, and there's a township match that's required for that. We have the possibility of use of existing library donation funds and future funds as well. Now, the last page that you see is Reynolds looking at that budget and saying, where do we need to place the dollars that have been allocated so that we can do the things that we need to do, understanding what goes to construction and some of the things that come out of that. Importantly, Casaccio used contract is represented in there. That's that first line in design contracts current. Other soft costs amount to just over $1 million. Right now we have about $310,000 just earmarked in the event that there is a temporary functioning library versus something that is much more de minimis and more of an office space, and the whole library system gets farmed out. That's something that we'll talk about in the last slide that is currently under review, with the idea of reducing those costs as much as possible. The construction costs then are limited to the $6 million. That would be the $5 million plus whatever Keystone grant and matching amounts there are. Reynolds believes that the project can be fully funded for the allocation the township has provided, and it will be a matter of managing things inside the construction to make sure that we are within that budget, perhaps with alternates, depending on the way everything turns out. And also within the soft costs, for example, when buying furniture, fixtures, and equipment, we have a set budget line item that may move around a little bit, but we will ultimately want to do the right things for what will effectively be your new library in the existing shell. Keystone grant process is running a little bit later than it has run in former years, and that's obviously in partial thanks to the budget issues in Harrisburg. We were expecting that about April 15th we would be issuing our letter of intent to apply. My understanding that'll probably move into early May. We are poised to submit that letter and have been in touch with the Keystone grant people for that. Later in the year, the application is due. We're thinking about October. That will have construction estimates if that letter of intent is accepted. Along with potentially the letter of intent and the application, we will be looking for letters of support from local Congress people and things like that. So we've started that work as well. January, we would receive acceptance. We have to coordinate with the bidding. The grant contract would be approved in about April, allowing us to start construction in May. Interestingly enough, this is part of the critical path of the schedule. When you look at the schedule, which is the next to last couple of pages, you'll see I think you'll see some red lines running through that, because that's really driving when we go out to bid. Because if we get the grant, we have to coordinate the bid documents with the grant money. Status of the schedule. Right now through May, we're going to be finalizing program and schematic design. That schematic design may run into June. The overall drawings and design will be finished by the end of the year. What we've done is we've laid out in some detail, and that schedule will change a little bit. We've laid out in some detail how we're going to step through that design. Importantly, but not yet in that schedule, is meetings in this room with the Board of Commissioners to provide periodic updates, and obviously to come to get the approvals that are necessary from the township as we go through the process. And I don't mean building permit approvals, but I mean approvals from the Board of Commissioners to enter into agreements and things of that nature. So as of now, we're thinking bidding in February and March, occupying any temporary space, therefore moving out about in April, and really being in the construction period from about May of 17 through May of 18 to be back open again for the critical summer period of June of 18. The last slide is about the temporary library space. When we first started talking about temporary library, the question was how much of the library needs to be relocated to be accessed and kind of be used as a smaller version of the library, or even a kiosk. So you can go from replicating the whole library in another space, which would cost an awful lot of money, to really not having any library services, but they're all farmed out and really housing the staff. So there's been some discussion and programming about what that would look like. Ultimately, the important thing is that we compress the costs as much as we can to get the services that are provided by the temporary library or farmed out to other library systems to the degree that the township, the Board of Commissioners, the community, and the library are all satisfied that that's going to be able to take care of the community for this period of just over a year. As of right now, we have to locate the temporary library and what that looks like, but really concurrently with that, we have to determine what that program is. So finding where we can have programs that are not in the library will reduce the need. Finding spaces, for example, if there are community space, and I think there's been discussion with the school district, et cetera, of where we could put folks in an office space that would be as of low cost as possible, so that the library staff can operate while the library is not in use, and then figuring out what that if any, program space looks like. So there has to be a thoughtful process, a dialogue between the library and the township, with the understanding the whole time that we provide the services that are needed and we reduce the cost as much as possible so that the money can actually go into the final library product. So what you're seeing in that budget, which is something that we've kind of all agreed, geez, we don't want to spend the money if we can't, is money for, and I have what I think is a high number, but $20 a square foot for a triple net lease for 18 months. That is, get into some space, have designs to modify it a little bit, make the changes to it, have the library there, and operate. There's also some money for storage of books, and I think I have the moving costs in there as well. So we're going to have moving costs regardless. We're going to have storage costs regardless. What really we'll be looking at is, can we reduce the design and construction of any modifications needed to a space, and how big is the space, and therefore is there a lease associated with it? So that's the challenge, and it really needs to be thoughtful and collaborative all the way up here. And that's going to be one of those points where we need to speak to the commissioners to make sure that as a community, Haverford Township is satisfied with what's going to happen during the period of construction. So as I said before, we will put on the schedule and we'll coordinate with the township manager to have periodic updates and certainly be here for approvals. If the Board of Commissioners, any of the commissioners want to see those updates more often or more frequently, please let the library know. One of the important things that will come out of all this is, and it gets back to social media, is getting the word out about the project and making sure everybody in the community is aware of what's going on so that really you can get the biggest benefit and really the best advertisement of the good thing that you're doing in the community out to Haverford Township. Are there any questions?
Commissioner?
This modifications that you make, it's a very good presentation, but it's not doing anything for parking, right? We haven't picked up any additional
That's
parking.
correct. Right now, there is no change in parking.
Okay, and the township, if you can go back to the slide where the township, where the funding is? Yeah, the funding is what he's going to talk about. So the township's committed $5 million, and there's $1.75 soft costs. Where's that coming from? The $1.75. Is that us as well? I thought we committed $5 million.
No, I'm sorry. We specifically asked for clarification from the board when the financing discussion took place. It was, sorry.
You should know better.
$5 million for construction costs, plus a 35% contingency,
For
soft
soft
costs.
And that estimates to 1.7?
Right.
Okay.
And then additionally, a match on the Keystone grant.
So
So you committed to the 3.
what will the existing library donation funds, what is that going to pay for?
Right now, I personally have not delved into this enough to understand what that may or may not go to. And frankly, I'm not sure what the amount is or what the goal is, but I'd be happy to get an answer back to the commissioners.
Yeah, I'd like to know what that's going to be. I mean, how much is the library going to, I guess, contribute to it? And what's that, the $500,000, what's that going to get us?
The Keystone grant match $500,000?
No, I'm sorry. No, this, the existing library donation.
Okay.
Oh, well, you find out if you can let the board know, I guess.
Okay. I have a question.
Sir.
Go back to the first floor plan. Just wondering whether we actually have more or less book storage. And my point is, there's some libraries that are going completely virtual, which I don't think is the answer. And there are also libraries that are just traditional books. And I think, I'm not obviously an expert, but it seems to me there's some middle ground there that we have to find. And I want to make sure there's enough room for technology and not just books. And I think it's more important for the kids, obviously books, but for the adults, I think computers and iPads and so forth are really the future.
We have, we've studied that in detail. There are a lot less books proposed than there have been. A lot of technology will have, and you'll see it in the next level of plans, laptop bars, computer areas, and so forth. And as I said, a lot of program areas in the makerspace, some of the meeting rooms and such. So yeah, it's more a community hub,
Yeah.
a community center for community activities than a book repository, much more so.
Exactly.
And the living room area is another example of that, where that can be, that's flexible enough that an event, poetry, song, anything could be held in that area, just as an example. So a lot of thought has been given to that relative to other libraries across the country.
Great.
Bill Wilson of Himmel Wilson is just one of the premier library consultants in the country, and we've been working very closely with the library staff. We had an issue just last week where more space was required to get the stair and the elevator sequence in, and we were able, as you see that plan now, the upper part, that's adult area, and the upper area is fiction and the lower area is nonfiction, and we were able to, library went back and looked more closely. I think we got another 25% or so to again get more program technology
Great.
and the spaces that we need.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I, while you're up, can I ask you another question? The second floor plan, it looks like a conference room off to the left, is that right? Or is that a conference area?
That would be the boardroom, but also an area that's used for other, and again, this is an early plan. This is just a diagram to present some of the features and highlights. But that, what you see in the left area there, that X shows the open area to the living room below, and that's a conference room. That would be the new boardroom and conference room. Also, historical artifacts and information materials will be stored there as well.
The archives, huh?
Archives.
Nice. Okay. Anyone else on the board? Thank you.
If there's no questions, I've been to as the library liaison to you guys. I want you guys to see and hear that, but I have to congratulate and provide kudos to the Board of Trustees and especially the staff and their crew that they've retained. They've done a very thoughtful job. I saw a more expanded presentation of this, a lot more detail at their meeting and discussion, and it's a great plan. I think it's going to be a great thing for our community in a couple of years. So thank you.
I agree. For your time.
And it is imperative, though, with that parking, that's a big deal of it, okay? Because that's all I really hear is parking.
Yeah.
More on us than them, though.
Yeah.
Well.
That is definitely more on us than them.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Impressive plan.
Yeah, and I'd love the answer you gave to Commissioner Lewis, that it is it's become more of a community hub than it is a book, a place for books. So we have to, going forward, and I love hearing the design is that's the way we're going.
Lots of USB ports all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. iPads, things like that, that we're not just
Or in 2 years, whatever that generation
in
is.
that
then.
library that was built in the 1900s, that
Right.
we're doing something that's going to, for the next 50 years.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Thank you. Okay, for next week, we will have a presentation for Parks and Rec. That presentation will have an easel. They were up and received one of the most prestigious awards for the Commonwealth. So
It's the Agency of the Year.
so that, we will add that to our agenda for next week as a presentation.
They'll be coming down from the it's PRPS, right? Yeah, the PRPS will be coming down to give us the award.
Economic Development Committee will have their report. Let's see, there's an ordinance, P6 2016, which is 1320 Steel Road. That's a second reading. Any questions? There being none, there's an ordinance, P7 2016, the lease for Boyles. That's a second reading. Any questions? Okay, and then the ordinance for P8 2016, which we also already discussed. That's a first reading. Are there any questions?
What are we revising in that one, Chris?
That's the allocation to use money now, and then we will borrow later on to pay ourselves back.
Well, more
Amy,
specifically,
you'd-
it is, the purpose of this ordinance is to amend our purposes for what we used, what we originally indicated we were going to use the series of 2013 bonds for. We are adding the road program to that, to the permitted uses of that, of those bond proceeds, which any municipality is allowed to do by law as long as they amend their ordinance in the proper manner, which is what we're doing. And we've used bond proceeds in the past for our larger road programs. Obviously, they're long-term projects and done best with long-term money rather than cash. And so that is the purpose of that amendment.
Well, what were the capital projects that we were going to do, for this 2013 that we talked about?
Mrs. Culberson?
Amy, do you have them available?
I believe 2013 had an allocation for building projects and stormwater mitigation. So we are adding the road program so we can use money that we have now instead of borrowing more for the road program now. We're essentially saving on interest costs. We're pushing off the borrowing a few more months until we actually need it.
Yeah, are the stormwater programs? I think one was down in the 8th Ward and one in the 7th Ward.
The specifics I wouldn't speak about right now because they haven't been specifically decided.
Mr. McGarity, I can address that. There's numerous, and we've been ongoing. Any those stormwater funds were to be used if we were successful in getting a grant for stormwater improvement grants, as well as the normal stormwater improvements that we've been making day to day. We have an emergency, we utilize those funds for that. So, and yes, it would be for future storm improvements in various parts of the township.
So how much, Larry, are we using from that?
How
For
much are
that?
we used?
Yeah, how much are we going to use before we pay ourselves back? What's your estimate?
$1.1 million, I think. $1.1 million.
Yeah, for the road program, and that's a contingency as well. It's probably going to be less than that.
And last year we floated, how much of a bond did we float?
For road program?
Little under 10 in 14 was the last time we did a bond
14.
issue.
Was 14, was under 10?
A shade under, I think 9.9.
Are we going to do that again, do you think?
Late-
We are,
probably
right? We are
late-
for these
probably
projects.
Probably late 2016,
Yeah.
we'll start the process, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.
You know what, while they're talking about that road program, the 2016 road program contract awards are on that. Do you want to say anything about that?
They came on their bid, so it was a good thing. We'll have a list up to the commissioners Monday night, so you can see the roads that'll be on the list. We don't like to show that list until the awarding of the program.
Can that be added to, Larry, or is that final?
No, it's final.
It's final?
It's
For
final.
this year?
Yes. Okay. And we always put in a little bit of contingency in the event, we don't expect it, but in the event that the fuel prices do jump, we actually found ourselves in a predicament. It's only happened one time in the 8 years that I've been here, where we did a very big road program, several $1 million, and the fuel prices jumped dramatically. And the state, PennDOT, does allow a contingency for the low bidder to increase and accrue the cost for those fuel prices. We always put a little bit of contingency in just in case that happened, but it's highly unlikely.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. There's 3 resolutions. One is the annual resolution for Fair Housing Month. Then the other one is for Community Development Block Grant. And then the land development for 1010 Darby Road. Does anybody have any questions? There being none, let's see, we have one proclamation for next week. I think that covers the entire agenda for the next week's regular commissioners meeting. There being no more questions, I will entertain a
I move
a
we
motion to, there, second?
Second.
Will be it. Thank you.
You.
Okay, you got a minute before we go to
Bill? Bill?
Bill, we meet you back.
There are, we won't know
Oh, I see. All right.
until they go to 7. So it'll be a-